Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Jason's engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications in Minnesota. I'm Vin Finelli. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Just fine, Guineith. I'm so glad you're with us. And I wanted to mention something. I was thinking this morning about who you, my voice is a little hoarse, class, so just please bear with me. My thoughts this morning were pretty interesting. What is it about USA Prepares that is a little different or very different? And I was thinking about Guineith, Norm, you know, the regular, the Monday through Thursday and Friday faculty and beyond. And we don't like being told what to do. You know that. So much so that, that Rich Sheben, Guineith, I, Kyle, Sharon, Bruce K., who you have not heard for a while, all generate our own electricity. And electricity is a form of slavery. And it's easy to prove. Just try shutting off that main breaker at your service panel and see how long you like it. No coffee, no cell phones, no microwave oven, no stove. If you have a well, no water. And people have become slaves voluntarily. They say, give me more. Give me more. I want more electricity. You know, my grandmother and grandfather's electric bill, I've seen them from the 1950s, like $7. One of my instructors, Isaac Asimov, when I was very, very young, said that electricity will be generated by the atom, nuclear power, atomic power. I have my notebook from when I was in class with him in the I'd say maybe 1960. Very, very young, and I was very interested in science. And he said electricity will be everywhere, it'll take over everything, it'll do everything for you, and it will be almost free. Well, he was right except for the almost free part, right? And the marketeers got involved, the capitalists got involved, and it's hardly free. It is probably one of the least expensive forms of energy, but it's not free. And so if you look at Guineith, if she wants to have electricity, the sun's got to be shining. If Rich wants to have electricity, the sun's got to be shining, or he's got to fire up his generator. And in our case over here, if we want electricity, the sun's got to be shining, or we fire up the generator, or we throw a switch and grab some from the grid, which I don't like doing. Kyle, he's got the same predicament. Sharon's got the same predicament. Bruce K's got the same predicament. And so we are dependent on electricity. Would we be able to farm without it? I don't think so. Not too easily. Certainly not at the 200 plus acre scale. Impossible. We have electric fencing, which requires a solar charger to charge a battery to power the solar fence, charger, which actually puts a high voltage 7,000 volts on the fence to, pulse 7,000 volts at a crack. And, it would be difficult for us to manage this farm without electricity. We'd be going backwards, which, by the way, is our intention, to go backwards. because I believe that if these electric-powered vehicle people have their way, electricity will be rationed. And if I were dependent on the grid from our farm, and there are plenty of farms, and probably all the farms around here, except for ours, are dependent on the grid. So let's say they have these fence chargers and they're plugged into a 120-volt outlet. And they are dependent on that 120 volts to be present to keep their electric fence running, to keep the cattle in the farm. And then some jerk or a collection of jerks in your village decides that they want to have electric cars, and they pull down so much power that electricity has to be rationed, and then your farm doesn't get 24-hour-a-day electricity. And you know what? Cows are pretty smart. They can literally smell the ozone coming off the electric fence. They can smell it. It kind of smells like a nice after rain scent. That's ozone. Nice clean air. They can smell it right at the edge of the electric fence. They can smell it within like an inch. And so they know when it's working or not. So when it's not working, they test the fence and they go, I can't believe it. It's not working. And they'll just walk right through it. So there'll be cows everywhere. So we are dependent. That's just one tiny example of how dependent we are on electricity. I have another item I'd like to mention, and this just kind of blows my mind. I was looking at the Mrs. Finelli's computer in the kitchen, and there's this article about this woman, and she got run over by her Range Rover. And the family is suing Jaguar Land Rover because she was run over by a Range Rover. Now, why that happened? Well, the family believes that it has to do with a gear shift control knob that was defective. You know that back in the 1960s, when automatic transmissions started becoming more popular, we had a couple Fords. We had a 65 and a 66 Ford Galaxy 500 and a Ford Country Squire. That was a station wagon, and we had the four-door sedan. And if you wanted to put the transmission selector into gear to go forward or backward, you'd have to do a couple things. One, you'd have to pull that gear select lever, which was mounted on the steering column, toward you, so that it would go left or right. So you pull it toward you, and then it goes into reverse, neutral, etc. And there are lockouts so that you can't go from from drive to reverse accidentally. There are lockouts to prevent that. Intentionally. That was in the 1960s. That was in the early days of automatic transmissions. Well, this Range Rover, I saw a part of the video where this woman is partially in the vehicle and partially out of the vehicle and gets run over by it. Because the transmission gear selector is not a lever. Now, in Mercedes, the gear shift knob, gear shift control, transmission control is in the console. It's between the driver's seat and the passenger seat. And it has detents. It has lockouts to prevent you from accidentally putting it from drive to reverse, and etc. As a matter of fact, you even have to step on the brake when you want to put it from park into a forward or reverse or neutral gear. So there's safety mechanisms. But Range Rover, Jaguar Land Rover, has a knob. Now, think of it like Hillary Clinton with her easy button. This big red button she wanted to give to Vladimir Putin. And they say, we can reset this. Just push this easy button. So this thing is like a hockey puck. And you turn it left or right. What moron thought this up? And who approved it? What kind of an idiot would think of a gear shift control knob versus a lever? Who would think of that? Well, obviously, it's not a good design, and obviously, this woman died from it. But obviously, somebody bought this stupid vehicle. Somebody got in it and said, is this the coolest thing or what? Look at this. This has a knob. We don't have to use that old-fashioned gear shift selector. That's safe. We can have a knob. And I hope this family takes down Jaguar Land Rover because of this idiotic design. This is what happens when the marketing people run amok. And management is too ignorant to understand what they're doing. It's an outrage. Any comments, Guineith?
Oh, oh my gosh. When things like this happen, it's like that, Darwin Awards get handed out. Personally, I'm somebody who says, I think that the shift idea is a good idea. I saw a YouTube video once, and it was a girl. She didn't have a very high IQ, and she called it the Prindle stick. And I said, actually, I like that name, Prindle stick. It stands for park, reverse, neutral, drive, low. And, that you actually have to shift it up and down. Personally, I think that the hockey puck, I can just picture it in my mind, and I can picture how easy it would be for a child, a dog, even your own foot, to just, if you're reaching into the car, to just flick that thing across and, put the thing into gear or, put it into reverse and just send that car just rocketing forward or rocketing backwards. With kids and dogs and all of that running around on the inside of the vehicle. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you might, just have the vehicle running for whatever reason, and the dog jumps in the other door. Maybe you've got the other door open, the dog jumps in the other door, flips the hockey stick, hockey puck thing, puts it into gear and all that. And I can't imagine why anybody would have something like that. It just seems too easy to, it seems too easy for something to go wrong. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you were talking about the Perlandel or Perndle stick. Back in 1965, there was a television show called Green Acres. And the stars were Eddie Albert and Ava Gabor. And they were city slickers from the big city, New York. And they ended up in this, rural farm. And it was a, I guess we can call it a comedy. And Ava Gabor used that term, PRNDL. Green Acres. That's the first time I ever heard that term being used. Yeah. So, I got to tell you another story. So we were working on this truck here, and relatively new. And within the last 10 years, this truck was manufactured. This darn thing, along with all the other trucks that we've seen here, have problems with traction control. And so it went to a previous mechanic. I'll tell you what he said when we come back. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia, and I'm sharing some of my thoughts over the last few days. So we've worked on a number of trucks here at the farm. And what happens is vehicles show up here because the dealers can't seem to fix them. And there was one that came in, and it was a Chevrolet pickup truck, about 10 years old. And the problem was it has a traction control error message on the instrument cluster. And we diagnosed the problem. And it has a bad sensor. And here's the problem. Vehicles today have a lot of sensors, and maybe as many as 200. About 40% of the cost of a new vehicle is electronics. Hard to believe, right? But it's true. Well, there is a sensor in the steering wheel that determines at what position the steering wheel is pointing. So, for example, we'll call straight up. going straight forward, 12 o'clock. And they're 360 degrees in a circle. So there's a sensor that determines at what angle you are turning the steering wheel. There are wheel sensors that determine how fast each of the four wheels is spinning to let the computer know whether you're losing traction or not. And then there are other sensors to determine the angle of the vehicle as it goes around a curve to see if it's leaning too much. And then there are other sensors that monitor fuel mixture, coolant temperature, and maybe next week I'll go over some of these sensors and how complicated these vehicles are. So here's what's happening. So this owner of the vehicle brings it in and he says he's got a problem. We diagnose it. And we tell him he needs one of these sensors. Now, it took probably half an hour to figure this out because it could be one of maybe 12 different sensors. And you don't want to throw $200 per sensor at a problem if you don't know if that's what it is, plus the time to swap all these parts. By the way, how long do these sensors last? Oh, I don't know, 50, 60,000 miles? So you've got 200 sensors, 50 or 60,000 miles apiece. You got to be out of your mind to buy a new car, according to Vin Finelli. So the owner of this vehicle, between the time that we ordered the sensor, and they're not in stock. Why would anybody want to stock sensors, right? So they have to be ordered. It takes about a week. We got the sensor coming in, and the owner comes back and he says, "Hey, I was talking to the other mechanic in town, and he said, you know what the problem is? The reason that I've got this message on my dashboard is because I step on the brake when I start the vehicle." Now I want you to think about this, class. Stepping on the brake before you start the vehicle. Who in their right mind would not step on the brake before starting the vehicle? You've got to be foolish to start your car without stepping on the brake first. Absolutely, positively, plumb loco. Because what would happen if you started your vehicle and it jumped into gear? What would happen? Well, maybe somebody in front of it could be run over. Maybe it's a dog. Maybe it's the child. Maybe it's the neighbor. Maybe it's your mother, father, sister, brother. Why would anybody start a vehicle without stepping on the brake? It makes no sense. None. So that's what this mechanic said. This mechanic said, well, that's because you step on the brake, but when before you start the vehicle. It's protocol. What I'm telling you is a whole bunch of things all wrapped into a couple paragraphs or sentences. Number one, mechanics make stuff up. They don't know, so they make it up. And then the automobile owner, so I guess he must be right because he wears a shirt that says, Joe on it. Do your own research, please. You can look that up. You can look that stuff up. You can say, traction control light comes on my GMC 1500, with the year. And you get all kinds of explanations. And some of them might be right. But the answer of stepping on the brake before you start the vehicle causing an error is nuts. Guineith, any comments about that short rambling tirade I just went through?
Well, I always step on the brake when I start with my vehicle for that exact reason.
Guineith, I engaged the brake on my bicycle before I got on it. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia, and I've got one more piece of information I want to share with you. So I got an email from someone I respect. And this email had a link that this nurse, you've probably heard about her, her name is Tiffany Dover. And a 42-year-old nurse, has some children. She's white, no health problems. And she worked in the COVID unit in a hospital in Tennessee. Well, they showed her as one of the 3 or 4 people getting the first COVID-19 vaccines, and she kind of leans over and faints. And they say, oh, yeah, because she has this condition. And whenever she feels pain, she faints. Now, do you believe that? Do you believe that a hospital would hire a nurse who would faint at the onset of a little bit of pain? Do you really believe that? How's that possible? That doesn't seem possible to me. Well, then the report comes out, according to internet news source Brighton, BRIGHTEON.com. And they say, breaking news, Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. It is alleged that the nurse that fainted live on the air has now died. That was 20 December 2020. Yeah. And then a report comes out saying, well, it's not true. What I'm saying is, we don't know what to believe. We don't know what to believe. And so, class, what you're going to have to do is figure it out for yourself. But if you follow the advice and counsel of Dr. Norm Shealy, which I do, you would probably not get that COVID-19 vaccine. And here's another thought. There are several companies racing toward the dollar sign to get the vaccine out. Now, are they identical? Are they using the same formularies? Are they using the same protocols? Are they using the same ingredients? Are they sourced from the same place? Are they the same? Or are they different? So if you get vaccine from one company or another, are they the same? Do they have the same efficacy? Do they have the same kill rate? Do they have the same amount of poisons and toxins in them? Do you believe the companies that say, here's what's in them? You know how the government releases statistics, periodically, regularly, and then a month or two or three later they say these are the revised numbers? You know, those inflation numbers that they said, we said were just awesome, really weren't so good. You can't believe anything, class. You can't even believe us. You have to do your own research. Guineith?
Yeah, people, they have to think for themselves. You know, Gerald Cementi, that's one of his favourite catchphrases, is think for yourself. And it's really, really not that hard. But what you have to do, what I'm hearing from a lot of people is we can't believe these people are so evil that they would actually do that. And to which I reply, well, I can believe that they're evil, maybe because I've had a lot more exposure to some really, really evil people in this world, and that I know that such people exist. And so it doesn't surprise me, especially with the likes of Bill Gates, that I have always thought that he was quite an evil person. He was the person who at the age of 14 years old invented the world's first computer virus. And then he invented he claimed it was the world's first workable operating system, but actually it wasn't. He stole it from Apple. You're absolutely right there. He stole it from Steve Jobs and company. But, then he invented the Windows operating system. Now, there's a particular scam. It's called the broken Windows scam. And that is that you break a window and then you go along posing as a window repair man to fix the window that you yourself or one of your cronies just broke. And I wonder if Bill Gates actually uses that as his business model, where he breaks the windows and then he comes along being the Windows repairman to fix the same window that he just broke. Because the thing about this sort of criminal psychopath is they have to tell you what they're doing, and this is it. So they, you might think, well, why would they even put this film of this woman on TV? Well, for one thing, it was live television, and they really didn't know what was going to happen. And for the other thing, they have to actually, on some level, tell you what they're doing. They have to tell you in some way that this vaccine is likely to kill you. I wouldn't be surprised. I was really surprised to hear that she died, but it wouldn't surprise me if she had actually, because apparently it has a really, really high kill rate. And that's kill, K-I-L-L, meaning dead. And, there's a good reason for that, because it shuts down your mitochondrial activity. That's one of the things it does. It messes with chromosome 8, which makes you weak, trusting, and stupid. So you want to be weak, trusting, and stupid with an IQ of about 80? Like some mentally incapacitated person. And, mentally incapacitated people, like people with Down syndrome, they're the sweetest people you'll ever meet. They're the nicest people you'll ever meet, but they're not the sharpest tools in the box. That's just how it is. And that's what they want all of us to be like. And it's not going to be good for you, and it's not going to be good for me if we become like that. I've certainly got no intention of ever becoming like that. You've got to be as sharp as a whip, is a saying they have here in Australia. Or in other words, a whip cracker, meaning that you've got to be pretty on the ball to stay on top of these guys. They have got some really, really nefarious plans figured out. And once you've seen a few of their plans, you realise they're actually not that bright. They are in one way quite bright, but they can't think up very many new ideas for hurting people. So they really just have to use the same ideas old ideas over and over and over and over again. So in other words, they say, hey, we've got too many people in the city, so here's a nice cattle car sitting next to the railway line. Yay, get in the cattle car. You're an idiot if you get into that cattle car. That's just how it is, because the world's been there before. These days, it's not a physical cattle car. It's a metaphysical cattle car. And the metaphysical cattle car is the vaccine. You're an absolute idiot if you get it. It puts nanobots into you, which go through and do all sorts of terrible things with your system. It's got an enzyme called luciferase, which is patented 2020-06-06-06. Hello, who do you think they might be serving? And it goes through and it genetically alters your messenger RNA, your mRNA, and your DNA. It makes you into a genetically modified organism. Do you think that's going to go well? I don't think it's going to go well. And every time that they've altered the DNA of a mammal, any organism, but for some reason, especially mammals, every time they have genetically altered a mammal, it has gone badly for them. It really has. So, people need to think for themselves. They need to realize that these people are really, really, really evil, and they should not be doing what they're told at this point in history. They need to probably be doing the exact opposite of anything the government tells them to do. And that's probably the safest thing to do. So if the government says go north, you should go south. And if they say go east, then you should probably go west. Because whatever it is that they are planning for you, it's probably going to harm you. At the top of government systems, all government systems at the top, okay? You don't get to the top of these government systems these days unless you are compromised. unless you are blackmailable and extortable. It just doesn't happen, and, I know there's a lot of people in America who really, 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 really love Donald Trump. And I think that Donald Trump should have been elected by the vote of the public, because there's so many people in America who love him. But even if he is installed as the president on January the 20th, America's problems don't go away. And in a lot of ways, they only just begin. And we're going to go into that a bit further. Actually, I think I'll go into it now. Would that be okay, Vincent? As I segue into
sure. I'll tell you what. I'd just like to make. I'd like to make one comment first. Class, I have assigned homework over the years, and I'm going to reassign it. You still have time to get it. And there are 3 television series I think you need to absolutely positively watch. One of them is Jericho, Jericho, 2006. Absolutely brilliant series, and it ran for roughly 2 seasons. You can pick it up for about $20 at Walmart.com. $21.90 right now on eBay. Jericho. You need to watch it. It is apocalyptic. It is what happens after the bombs go off in the United States. And it's chaos. It will teach you what you need to think about to prepare. The whole family needs to watch it. It's not so much blood, gore, and guts as it will paint those mental images that you need to have in your mind. Second series. It's called Survivors. Survivors. In 1975, the first Survivor series was produced by BBC, British Broadcasting Company. When you buy it, make sure you get one that will work on your DVD player. Okay? Get the right region, because this is a worldwide production. So the best ones are from outside the United States, but they won't play on your player if you have a U.S.-only region. So make sure you get the right one. The second, which is almost as good, is the 2008 to 2010 series. So there are 2 series of Survivors. The first one, 1975, is the best. Second best is the 2008 to 2010. Gwyneth Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Gwyneth, you've got a lot prepared, so I'm just going to sit back and relax. I know you've got a wealth of information, and Gwyneth's at the front of the class at the blackboard. Gwyneth?
Okay. Now, what I would like to say is what I was alluding to just before the ad was about Donald Trump. Now, he should, if everything's right and fair and there was no corruption, then he should have been reinstalled as the President of the United States. That's not necessarily going to happen. We just have to wait and see. But even if it does, people in America are very much mistaken if they think that they're out of the woods just because Donald Trump has been reinstalled as your president. And I say that for this reason. There's things about him that are ignored by his large crowd of supporters, okay? They are published in the press. They are published in documents from organizations like the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense. But they just somehow get ignored by, people who just don't want to see and don't want to admit what they are like, or what these aspects of his personality. And the other thing that happens is that his many supporters make excuses for him. They say, he's surrounded by so many swamp creatures. Well, why did that happen? It happened because when he was installed as president for the first time, he appointed a bunch of swamp creatures to be the people around him. People like Bill Barr, okay? Who's, oh my gosh, he appointed these people. And they say, oh, well, he's just getting bad advice. He's just, he has to go on the advice that he's given. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't have to go on the advice that he's given. If he's any sort of a man, if he's any sort of a businessman, which I know that he is, he can think for himself, okay? He can make his own decisions. He can give, what do they call it, presidential decrees, executive orders. He can do that. And people have to do what they're told, And if they don't, then he can have them sent off to the hoose cow big time. He really can. But, this isn't what happens. Here are some examples of what I'm saying. And I'm saying that, by the way, I don't like Joe Biden either. I think that Joe Biden is a really, really dangerous piece of work. So I'm not fans of any of them. They've all compromised themselves, including Donald Trump, and especially including Joe Biden. And if anyone believes that it's all going to be okay because their favourite guy is in the big house, then they're very, very much mistaken. But here are some examples of things that Donald Trump has done or is doing that really, really show how compromised he is. For one thing, he could have at any time pardoned Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. He could have done that within 5 minutes at any stage. He has never done that. He never will do that because he's been told not to. So someone along the line of command, the chain of command that really runs the show, has told him not to do that. Because Julian Assange just blew too many whistles. And they have got it in for him because of that. Another thing is that Donald Trump has said repeatedly that he is going to require inoculations of everybody in the United States for this coronavirus vaccine, and that he's going to use, depending on what speech he's making on that day, the National Guard or the military to do so. Hello? Excuse me? He's going to do what? So there's going to be guys with guns at vaccination points just to make sure that you've got your vaccine? Hello? Can anybody hear me? Is this something that a good guy would do? Okay, I can hear the music, and I think that means that we're going into a break. I'll be back after the break and continue this discussion.
All right, that's Guineith Isaacs.
Hi, everybody. This is Guineith Isaacs speaking here. Vincent had some urgent farm work that we had to attend to, so it's just me for this hour. And I will be continuing on with what we are going to talk about before the top of the hour news, and that was, the situation as it really is in America at the moment. Okay, the truth of the matter is that Trump is not. If he was really, truly for the people, there was a lot of things that he would have done that he has not done. And there are statements that he has publicly made in speeches with nobody forcing him his hand, nobody holding a figurative or literal gun to his back, making him make these statements. They are things that he has actually said. Okay? For one thing, as soon as he was made president, or as soon as he was elected president for the first time 4 years ago, he said that Hillary was a very fine woman. He should not have said that. It's not true. Hillary is being, she has got so many unsolved murders that the evidence points squarely back to her and her husband, that it's just amazing of why she is not on death row. And she has been, there's indications that she's been involved in black magic, child trafficking, just about every manner of vile crime under the sun. That's just how it is. She's not a fine woman. It's that, it's all, as George Carlin said, it's all a big club and you ain't in it. That's how it is, And, oh my gosh, they're all friends from a long, long, long way back, Oh my gosh. Another thing that has just come out recently, and my source on this is the Washington Post, okay? Now, the Washington Post might have problems, but it publishes, some real gems now and again, and their source on this particular piece of information was the Department of Justice, and they were going from primary sources. And if a news item comes out in a major national U.S. daily and quotes primary sources, I'm inclined to believe it. And that is that Donald Trump plans to reintroduce into the United States, if he is reinstated as the president, as he should be, because he was elected, he was actually voted in, and the only reason why Mr. Biden has any chance whatsoever is because he is being engaged in massive voter fraud. But Donald Trump has said in a public speech with the Department of Justice that he is going to reintroduce hanging, the electric chair, gas chambers, and firing squads as methods of execution in federal capital crimes. And I read that and I was like, what? You've got to be kidding me. I didn't believe it. Because it seemed so incredible. Somebody, this came up on my feed, or somebody sent me the link. I'm not sure, I can't quite remember how I came across this. And I went back and I checked the primary sources, and it was, oh my gosh, they're absolutely right. And they are claiming that they're going to be doing so many executions that they're going to have trouble getting enough of a lethal injection drug to do the lethal injection. And I'm going, my gosh, that many executions? Exactly how many people is Donald Trump planning on executing? I'm not necessarily against the death penalty. I think that in certain criminal cases that it's appropriate. But for doing so many executions that you're likely to run out of the drug for the lethal injections, that's ketamine is what they use for the lethal injections. This horse track, and I've had animals that I've had to put down. I've had to have the vet come out and give him a dose of ketamine. It's pretty potent stuff, and it's not very pretty to see a critter die of ketamine poisoning, you know. I hate that, but, you know, sometimes animals get to the end of their life, then you've got to put them down, horses or dogs or whatever. I'm almost lost for words. And I know that I've been saying that in a few cases lately, but, you know, this is something where it's like genuinely an oh my gosh moment. He is planning on doing so many executions in this second term that he thinks he's going to run out of ketamine. And that's why he is, you know, going to reinstitute the electric chair, the hangman's noose, the gas chamber, and the firing squad. Oh my gosh! You think this guy's a good guy? You think this guy's on your side? You need to just wake up and smell the roses. The truth of it is that none of them are on your side. They are on their side. They have got their own team, and you know it's like there's a movie that's going to be coming out in probably about 6 months' time. It's and I have put money towards funding this movie, so there's a disclaimer here. Not a huge amount, but a small amount of money towards funding this movie. And it's called The Jones Plantation. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with Alex, by the way. And it's being put out by it's being put out by a fellow by the name of Larkin Rose. It's Larken. Rose, Rose, and if you want to learn about this film project, it's called, what's the name of the website? If you just go onto your favourite search engine and type in The Jones Plantation, it should come up with the search results for this project, preferably probably startpage.com or duckduckgo.com, duckduckgo.com. Probably you won't get the search result from Google because Google doesn't like Larkin Rose very much. But this is it. You've got to think. When you read something like that in the Washington Post or in any outlet, InfoWars, One American News, wherever you hear it, even if it's from a news source that you wouldn't normally listen to, that you wouldn't normally take any notice of whatsoever because, you think that it's the enemy's news source. If you hear it, you've got to look into it because sometimes they publish little gems of what they're going to do in the future. And you've got to go back, check the primary sources on news articles. I went back and I checked the primary sources on those news articles, and it's bona fide. He's planning on doing this. And that's a huge red flag. And does that mean that I think that Biden should be installed as the president? No, sirree. No, sirree. I think that neither of them should. But I think that Donald Trump, on the other hand, Donald Trump was elected democratically to be the president. So he should sit in the White House under law, because that's your system in America. That's the system that you have, the democratically elected president. But, oh boy, if you think that everything is going to be okay just because Donald Trump is going to be the president for the next 4 years, you have got another thing coming. It's not going to be all okay. All right. You're talking about forced vaccines, mandatory vaccines, at the point of a rifle, a military rifle. That's just not going to go well at all. Now, I really need to get into discussing here of what you should do, okay? And I'm also going to be talking tomorrow in hour number 1 with Kathy from Ohio. And we're going to be, one of the things that we're going to be discussing tomorrow is what you should do if you have to stay in the in urban or suburban areas for whatever reason. But today we'll be discussing why you shouldn't. And I understand that there are people who, for whatever reason, they can't leave the urban or suburban environment. You know, maybe there's, I don't know, there's any number of reasons why you wouldn't be able to leave. But I think that if you can leave, then you should leave now. Oh my gosh, this is just absolutely mind blowing. I've been saying for the last 12 months, at least, that they're going to be turning all of the cities and all of the towns into massive concentration camps. And here in Victoria, Australia, where I live, they've been doing that for, most of this year. They basically cut off all the roads between Melbourne and country Victoria, and they put police guards on all of the major exits, and they locked down the entire city of metropolitan Melbourne, and they basically turned it into a gigantic concentration camp. They trial ballooned it on Melbourne. Hello everybody, this is Guineith speaking here. Keeping the chair warm for Vincent. In this, the second hour of USA Prepares. Vincent had to go and do some urgent farm work. That's just how it is on farms sometimes. And sometimes things just come up and they really can't be delayed. So I'm here for the second hour of the broadcast. And we're talking about what is going to happen in the coming year. Okay? And here's a bit of a spoiler alert. Things are not going to get better. Okay? If anybody is telling you that things are going to get better in 2021, I've got a bridge to sell you. And it's got some waterfront views in Arizona. So, yeah, that's a little American phrase that I heard a little while back, and I thought, wow, that's a great one. Things are not going to get any better. All right. I'll tell you what they're planning, and how I know that this is what they're planning is, to quote General Patton, except I can't use his profanity, of course. He said, Rommel, you son, you're going to replace the words. Rommel, you magnificent creature. I've read your blankety-blank book. People like Charles Schwab, people like Fauci, people like Bill Gates, they tell people in their public speeches and in their books that they write and in the blog posts and editorials that they contribute to, various websites and magazines and newspapers and stuff like that. They tell you what they're going to do. They're like, they're like Jeffrey Dahmer, who says, I just get into the car, it's all right, just put the handcuffs on, yeah, it's all right. Just get into the basement, yeah, it's all right, it's all good. You're an idiot if you get into the car, put the handcuffs on and go down into the basement. So if you can at all leave the cities, you should be doing so now, okay? tomorrow I'm going to speak with Kathy from Ohio about what you should do if you cannot leave the city, okay? Or if you cannot leave suburbia for whatever reason, okay? Because I'm aware that there's going to be with some people that they can't. But you should do so now if you can, all right? You should go into a rural area. If you own urban or suburban real estate, it's probably going to be a good idea. I can't offer financial advice, by the way, but this is an example of how you could fund moving out of urban or suburban America and getting a piece of rural land, okay? There's people who offer rural land on a rent-to-buy basis. And sometimes, there's still some places that are still offering it for sale for low five-figure sums. We're talking about well under $50,000, maybe $20,000, $30,000 for a few acres of land, maybe even lower. Just go on the internet and search for it, and it's on a rent-to-buy basis. So basically, you put down a deposit. Sometimes the deposit as little as maybe $300-$500 or whatever. So you pay $300 to $500 to the vendor, to the seller, and then you pay rent on the land. You can move onto the land generally. You can set up your homestead. That's an example of how you could do it. But as well as that, if you own urban or suburban real estate, you should seriously consider selling it and using that money to buy a rural acreage. I'll be back with you after the bottom of the hour news. Hello, everybody. This is Guineith speaking here. The phone just dropped out, which I think is quite extraordinary given the subject matter that I had just before the bottom of the hour news. Oh my gosh, we are heading into the worst time that the earth has ever seen. We are headed into apocalypse. If you can get out of the cities at all, then you should, and you should do so as soon as possible. You should do so now. There is going to be, this is what the likes of Charles Schwab, Bill Gates, and Dr. Fauci have been saying in their own public speeches. There's going to be another so-called disease outbreak after Christmas and the New Year, and it is going to be really deadly, and that is Bill Gates' words. He said that this COVID-19 is just a drill, but there is a disease coming that is going to be really deadly. And the only way that you would be able to get away from that would be if you are in a rural or remote area. And it comes up, well, how should you live in such an area? Okay? It's best of all if you have people around you. Okay? So if you have a family around you, if you have a sympathetic spouse, and if you have children with you, that they're going to be the biggest help. If your spouse is sympathetic and if you can explain what's going on to your children. But if it may well be that it's just you. If you have to go out onto a rural piece of land, or even if you have to go and live as a homeless person, as a last resort, That should not be anything that you should ever take on lightly, to be homeless. I've been there. It's no fun. But if it's a matter of being homeless or staying in a situation that is highly dangerous, then being homeless is also dangerous, but it's probably less dangerous than living in a situation where you're a sitting duck. Okay? You need to learn some traditional or indigenous or primitive type survival skills. And these can range from knowing how to garden in an indigenous manner or in a traditional manner. You might think of learning how to live like the Amish. That might be an example of learning to live in a traditional manner, or learning to live like some of the Native American tribes that are out there. But you've got to do it. You've got to learn some of these old-time indigenous skills. And it can start with even small things, like you may not even know how to make fire, okay? You may not even know how to make fire even if you've got a Bic lighter or a packet of matches. You know, that's a good place to start, to learn how to make a cooking fire, okay? Because if you can make a cooking fire, then your chances of survival multiply many times over if you know how to make a cooking fire. Even if you want to get started with the art of fire making, just learn with a packet of matches or a Bic lighter to start with, and then progress to some other more traditional fire making skills, like using a flint or using then you can, then progress to learning how to use a fire stick or a hand bow. This is it. If you know how to make fire, and if you know how to make a fire that can't be easily observed from a long distance away, then your chances of survival, they go through the roof. They increase astronomically, because humans without fire are just extremely vulnerable creatures. They just are. We need fire to cook food. We need fire to keep warm. And we need fire for psychological reassurance. And that's something that you can't underestimate in a survival situation, is the benefit of psychological reassurance. If you've got a fire, then you're to some degree you're protected from predators such as wild cats, pumas, panthers, lynxes, coyotes and wolves and bears, depending on what part of the country that you're in. Some parts, even some quite, urban and suburban areas, they still have, lynxes, and they still have pumas. There's pumas in the Hollywood Hills, for instance. And a puma is perfectly capable of having you for lunch. But if you've got a campfire, then probably that puma is not going to eat you. But you'll have to, you have to have the skill of maintaining it. This is it. This is what I'm talking about, with how to live in a traditional or an indigenous manner. There's other skills as well. You'll find that if you've been raised, as most of us have been, in an urban and suburban area, and you've been wearing footwear your whole life, your feet are going to be very soft. And when your shoes wear out, you're going to have a problem, because you may have to walk over rough terrain, and your feet are going to get cut to pieces. And you may have to sit for a week or two just waiting for your foot to heal up. Even if you stub your toe, it's going to seriously affect your ability to get around. And I know I've had plenty of stubbed toes. The country around where I live is semi-arid, and especially in the summer, the ground's really hard. And I really, really struggle to get about if I don't have a pair of boots or shoes. There are indigenous forms of shoemaking or sandal making, even just to protect the sole of the feet. But also you may want to enclose the toes as well, because, like I say, stubbed toes can really ruin your day. They really can. They can quite cripple you, actually. They can be extremely painful. And if they get infected, they can be dangerous as well. That's another example. And things like tanning, things like how to gut out an animal for the table, how to cook. So if you trap an animal, how are you going to convert that dead animal into meat that you can eat, that you can roast, that you can make into a soup? How are you going to do that? These are all things that take time to learn. They're all what I would classify as traditional, primitive, and indigenous type skills. And you can go on from there. And every single indigenous skill that you learn increases your chances of survival, whether it's gardening in a traditional manner, that is without the use of pesticides and herbicides. Using, even how to ride a horse. Horses are really, really interesting creatures. I love horses. I have horses on my farm. They provide manure for my garden, but they also provide transportation for me. And, riding a horse is an art and it's a skill, and it takes work and it takes effort. But if you can ride a horse, then your ability to get about the place in a collapse situation, that it goes up through the roof. And, it's slightly more along the technological spectrum, but even bicycle repair, okay? Even there's a TV series out there on the internet. It's called Bush Mechanics, okay? And also the Bush Mechanic boys, they put together another television series called Black As, and then Black As 2, which is subtitled Get My Tractor Back. If you watch those, then they can be a real education as to how indigenous tribal people live in that, in that interaction area between the indigenous tribal way of life and the modern way of life. So in that television series, they do things like they make canoes out of sheets of corrugated roofing iron. That's an example. They're taking a traditional indigenous skill, which is making bark canoes, and they are applying it to a modern material, which is roofing iron. And this is what you will have to do. So I'm not even necessarily talking about just, using bark and using tree resins and using that sort of thing. You can apply these types of traditional indigenous skills to things like roofing iron and fencing wire as well, to make products that will help you to survive. Hello everybody, this is Guineith Isaac speaking, keeping the seat warm for Vincent. He had to go and do some urgent farm work. But in this last segment, I would like to just give some encouragement to people, because I'm aware that this whole thing of, all these collapse-type scenarios are all playing out. They're all playing out at the same time. And, here am I on the air telling everybody to get out of the cities and to set up rural homesteads. I really believe that is the best option for most people. But it can get, you can get overly frightened. It's very, very important to really see what's going on here. And that is that the beast system that has been dominating the global landscape, the global political landscape, the global social landscape for centuries is right at the point of collapse. I don't think that they'll even be around in a few years' time. That what you're looking at the fall of Babylon, you're looking at the fall of Rome, and ultimately that's a good thing that Babylon's falling, that Rome is falling, because, Babylon and Rome have a lot of problems. Our modern version of Babylon and Rome has been taken over by satanic pedophile cartels. There's absolutely no dispute about that. And they have become run on a currency of blackmail, of the deepest and most despicable crimes being the fuel for this blackmail. It's a good thing that is going away, because when it does, then humanity will get a chance to be free and to develop as it really ought to develop. But as well as that, the systems of support of all of us sheep, human livestock, are also going away, and we have to make sure that we are not caught up in that collapse. And that is why I'm saying if at all possible, if you can at all possible get out of the cities, then you should do so, even out of country towns, even out of little tiny hamlets. You should be on rural land at this point, unless there is some very, very good reason for you to be in an urban or suburban setting. And some people, they won't be able to get out of the cities or out of the, suburbia or rural areas. And we'll discuss that, what you should do in another broadcast. But like I said, if you can get that little country estate, if you can get that rural homestead up and running in the next little while, even if you have to buy land and move onto it in an RV or in a tent and then build your house from there, that might be the way to go. You've got to take into account your climate as well. It's probably not going to be a good idea to move into a tent in a place in the middle of winter, for instance, where it gets to like 20 below. That's probably not going to be a good idea. But, you go with what circumstances you have, and you'll have to learn to think for yourself, make decisions for yourself, and to actually use common sense. And yes, you can pray, but I occasionally get people emailing me and they say to me, well, what should I do? I've prayed about this topic and I can't think what to do. Well, you need to think what to do. This is it. Especially believers. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. Jesus Christ died on the cross for me. But he put me on this earth and he gave me free will and he gave me a brain in my head and he gave me the ability to reason. And normally, if you look at an issue then you can normally figure out a logical solution. You can normally figure out a logical answer to a problem if you sit and look at it, and if you just meditate on it for a bit, and the answer will come to you. Okay, well, that's the end of the broadcast. And, oh my gosh, God bless you all. It's been fantastic being with all of you this week. And I'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. I think that there's actually going to be rebroadcasts run tomorrow and on Friday because it's Christmas and because the GCN staff enjoy their Christmas as much as you do. Merry Christmas and God bless.